We're going to start in just a minute. So if everybody wants to come in and find a seat, it's so great to see so many people out here. There's no rock concert, so if you're in the wrong room, you can go now. There's no musicians or anything.
What room are the musicians?
All right. Oh. We can't get close to each other because of our microphones. Oh, okay. All right, you ready?
Yeah, go.
With the buttons? Well, we're going to leave the button maker here for during the Q&A. So if you don't have questions, you can make a button, or you can ask a question and make a button at the same time. Yeah, we can stop the buttons for now. Yeah, that's right. That's your reward. You have to ask a question in order to make a button.
And eat candy.
Remember, this one's off. So
it's off.
Yeah. So I'll just tip it down so we don't accidentally talk to it. All right, so we wanted to try something at the start, which is, how many of you have a mobile phone that you can text from?
Ooh, wow.
Well, that's just fabulous. So we have this up on the board. And if you could please take out your phone. And what our question to you is, what would you like to change or do differently? And this can also be get rid of. So in the event of something like print indexes, if you would like to get rid of them, that is what this is saying. It's not saying buy more print indexes. So this is a big change that you would like to see in your library. So would you like to see your reference desk change, maybe get rid of it? Would you like to see your print indexes go away? Do you want to see a change in your library staff structure? Your current statistics gathering model, and that does include pieces of paper that you put check marks on. Microfilm, microfiche, if you want to see that go away. If you want to no longer order print reference items, get rid of bound periodicals, change your OPAC, or redo your space. So these are the codes, and if you can go ahead and just pick your top one, text it in. So here comes our poll, and we're going to see what is most interesting to people. All right, so it's a little bit difficult to read. But it looks like the biggest thing is your current statistics tied with redo of physical space, followed by change library staff structure. And we also have tied next would be no longer order print reference and change in OPAC. So pretty exciting. It was just kind of nice to get a feel for what people were thinking in the room before we started our talk. So thank you all for participating.
And we've done most of those things.
We have done most of those things in this last year. So the title of our presentation is, Does That Really Work? Transforming the Traditional, Rethinking and Letting Go. And we will explain why our Twitter bird is no longer tweeting as we go through. So we wanted to give you guys an idea of who we are and where we're coming from. My name is Michelle Jacobs-Lustig. I began at Pepperdine in 2010, and I work in the undergraduate library on the Malibu campus. Our campus has about 5,600 undergraduate students. Sally.
I'm Sally Bryant, and I'm head of access services currently. I've worked at Pepperdine for over 8 years. This is my third job at Pepperdine, and I work with Michelle in the undergraduate library in Malibu.
And prior to that, you worked at the graduate campus, and you were head of tech services.
Yes, that's true.
So we have a very, very unique perspective when we're coming to this. So at Payson, we have 9 librarians who provide instruction, and 7 of those librarians also provide reference services. We do use LibQual as a way to test how we're doing. Some of us like it, some of us don't. And what we did when I actually started is one of the things that I was tasked with doing was to complete a reference and instruction audit and a literature review, which the final report was more than 60 pages. Don't worry, we gave a nice brief version of that out to our staff. And then to do that, we looked at over 125 articles and reports from peer, aspiring, and not so aspiring institutions to get an idea of what was going on. So we love this book.
Yeah, this book, I'll pass it around. I don't know if anybody's read it yet, but we picked this quote because our theme is about the letting go of the traditional, and in this book, one of the themes is the fact that we can let go, and through conversation we can learn more things, and I thought it would be appropriate for this conference that we can all learn from each other.
So the quote that we loved was, the mission of librarians is to improve society through facilitating knowledge creation in their communities. And so we want to think of everybody like a community today. And yes, we're kind of up here and we're going to hop around and move around and stuff, but we want everybody to actively participate in this. So if we're talking about something and you want to ask a question, you don't have to hold your questions till the end. One of us will run over to you, and we want to kind of like create a dialogue and get a dialogue going. The main goal of our presentation today is for you to see some of the things that we've tried that have worked and that have not worked so well, and what you can bring back to you to your library or to your campus.
I was told today at lunch that one of the things that Pepperdine's known for is actually letting go of the traditional. And one thing which we won't get into here is that we actually changed our ILS system to WMS. And so we are in the cloud with our ILS system. So that was like a huge change that we did in the last year and a half. But this presentation is more about cheap, easy things that you can try in your own libraries.
All right, so most of the time we go to a presentation and we see how they started off with talking about how they're going to do better for their users. And we know that a lot of things kind of happen with that. You end up with things like workload creep, you end up with not enough staff, you end up with wanting things that are outside of your budget. So we were like, you know what, before we even go into anything, we're going to talk about the us for a minute and what it is that we as librarians needed in order to make these ideas sustainable. So we wanted to reinvent the student worker role. We wanted to have better use of staff desk hours. You can come in. Better use of staff desk hours. We didn't want people feeling chained to the desk. We knew we needed to change our marketing strategy because whatever had been going on was not working. We wanted to move towards a culture of data-driven services, and we needed to make improvements to wayfinding both in the physical and the virtual world. This was a huge issue for us. Better use of space, and most importantly, we wanted to have fun with what we were doing.
And we want you guys to have fun too. And so this is more of like a conversational style thing. It's not really formal. So please feel free to ask us questions at any time.
So we like to learn things from Google. How many of you wish that your OPAC worked like Google? Right? Everybody's like, you could just type in anything and it's like, here you go. Here's 563 million things that could be your topic. So we took from Google the idea that they keep things in beta for a really long time. Gmail was in beta for years. Google Maps was in beta for years. Google Plus, I'm not so sure about that. How I feel about Google Plus. We're not going Google Plus with us. But so we wanted to do the Google style beta, survey our users, conduct the focus groups, do continual assessment, continual improvements. This was a big thing that we realized. We need to be very adaptable as we're doing things. So even though we might have started off going, okay, this is our goal, and then all of a sudden we see how the students are using it, we're like, this is no longer our goal, this is our goal. You really have to adjust to your group, because if you have a service that is good, and you realize that you thought it was great for this, and the students are like, no, we're doing that, you don't want to lose that momentum, so change your objectives and your mission to work in the way in which your users are getting involved with it. We really needed to have learning outcomes, we needed to address our high impact practices, and we needed to make sure that we continue to evolve to meet student demand, which is huge. I mean, really, we are there for our students.
And we've had failures. They haven't been all successful, and some of them are works in progress.
Okay, so now the them, our students. So we met with student groups. We also met with our student government. They were really interested in telling us what they wanted to see. And they were like, okay, this is what we want, more soft seating and more outlets. We have an outlet shortage in the library, so one of our projects has been to actually just hire an electrician to put in more outlets. Better signage. And I have to say, when I started, I kept ending up in the wrong part of the library because I was following the signs. So we knew that was an issue. One place to get help, we had a separate reference desk, and then you went all the way over here to check out something, and they were like, what? Who does what? They wanted more study space and study rooms. Who doesn't have that? How many of your students want more study rooms? If we had 4,000 study rooms, it would not be enough. Mm-hmm. And then they wanted food and coffee, and we do allow food and drink in our library.
Part of the problem was the main library, Payson Library on the Malibu campus, was built in the 70s. So back in the day, they didn't have any need for electrical outlets, and they didn't have a need for study rooms. So we've had to take the existing space and create study rooms and try to reconform our space. And so that is where we're coming from. It's not a new library.
It's not. So where to start? And this is what we realized, really. You need to get away from the one-size-fits-all model. I'm going to say this again. Get away from the one-size-fits-all model. The way that you market to your faculty is not going to work for students. The way that you market to your students is not going to work for your donors. It means you have to create different types of handouts and web pages for different things, but it's not going to work if you try to use a one-size-fits-all model. It just doesn't. And one of the things that we hear a lot of is making tutorials for library instruction so that they don't have to come in. Like, just send them the tutorial. It doesn't work. They're not going to watch it. And when we look at items that are on reserve as a really good example of this, they don't come and read every item that's on reserve, especially when it's the optional items for the class, unless extra credit is attached to it. So if we say, you guys should watch this video on research, and using, databases, they're going to be like, I know how to use Google, goodbye. So we really needed to stay away from that one-size-fits-all model. It doesn't work. And what's nice about the library and the librarians is that personal connection that you have to the faculty member or to the students that come in. Yes, this works much better on a smaller campus than it does on a bigger campus. There are ways to kind of scale this type of thing up, but we really found that the one-size-fits-all doesn't work. So Sally?
Well, I'm going to start with all the stuff that we used to do. So we're going to start with our student workers. And so with our student workers, before we used to just hire them, train them in the job, and then and that was pretty much it. Then a couple years ago, we changed the model, and we got a commitment to excellence from them, where they had to really read and really learn and train and know how to do the circulation desk, and at that time we had a reference desk. We also changed their shirts so that they're blue and they say Pepperdine University Libraries on them. But then we turned that on its head, and we gave it, well, go ahead.
So we decided to create a different type of student worker. We have our general shelving students, we have our circ students, and then we realized we don't have enough staff, professional staff, to answer every little question that we get. Yes, as librarians, we need to answer the research questions, but where's the bathroom? Or there's this database that starts with the letter J, and I think it has something to do with shopping, maybe. It's like J retail, J store. That was, which is funny because I do get asked that. And we realized those little basic questions, we could have souped up student workers, which we call library ambassadors, kind of doing that. And the other great thing about the library ambassadors is they help us market the library services and coming in for those one-on-one research consultations. And it's a great way to spread word of mouth. They sign a code of conduct in addition to the other paper, and they post on our Facebook page for us. They make flyers. They do all sorts of different types of things. And what we do is they're customer service focused, they're well trained, we train them continually. We ask them to write reviews of databases. So we say, okay, what is your major? You're a math major, go into MathSina and write a review on how to use MathSina and what you liked about it, which is really good for us because none of us are really math people. So here we have a math major who's like, this is the coolest thing ever. I could look up my math professor in it. And she's telling that to our other students, so our other students are wanting to use MathSina. If I said, this is the coolest database ever, you can look up your professors, I'd be like, well, why do I want to do that? But coming from a library ambassador, it sounds really good. So it's a mentorship program, and it's our capstone for our students. And here's some of our library ambassadors at work.
And they're our best student workers. We pick them, they're the brightest and the best. And they, all the other students look up to them, and we require them to have a year. They're not going to be freshman students. They're going to be at least sophomores, and it's a very strict program to get into.
Yeah, they're required to turn in a research paper that they've done, and in some cases we do ask them to provide us with a letter of recommendation for a faculty member if they're in a non-research specific major. Yes? Right now we have...
I think we have about 6.
6, yeah. I was like, we had 7, but now we have 6. And it is a semester-to-semester program. If you don't cut it, you don't get to stay. And we do continual coaching with them and say, okay, this is what we'd like you to do. And if we don't see the improvement, then they're not rehired on as ambassador. They can go back to being a circ student, though. We're not getting rid of them altogether. We just let them know that, we wanted more going on. And the other way we stepped it up is we kept getting people going, that student didn't help me, and it was like a circ student or whatever. Or I asked somebody in the stacks wearing the blue shirt for help, and I don't know who they were, but they weren't helpful. So we gave them name tags.
Here's one.
Here's one of them.
This is mine.
And we did blue lanyards for people who work on the floor, and then we opened up the Academic Center for Excellence, and our highlight color is green. So we've got green name tags for up there. And it's really great because students now, wearing the name tag, they actually perform better because somebody will know who they are. And also, we haven't gotten any complaints about a specific student, but we get something like, Darlena was really helpful, or I met this guy Alex in the stacks, and he really gave me some great tips on things. So it's actually created this very nice environment of us getting more positive feedback than we would normally get on our staff.
Yeah, I've been getting emails from people really raving about the student workers, and before we had a little bit of an issue with them.
And something else that we did, and this is something to take into consideration when you do order lanyards, we did not order itchy lanyards. I used to work at a library where we had to wear these, and it would give me a rash on the back of my neck. It was like a really skinny one. How many of you are not digging the lanyards around your name tags right now? These are really nice, silky nylon ones. We ordered them a little bit thicker than normal. They don't itch, and they're very soft. So it is something to keep in mind. And these come out to less than $1 a piece from the company we ordered them from, and I'll be happy to share that with you. And then we just print these ourselves. We were originally going to have a mass-produced badge that was going to be hard plastic. It was not in the budget to do it. So we just bought these little plastic guys. They're like 10 cents each and clipped them on. So it was a very inexpensive thing. The 200 badges that we have done has cost us about $150, maybe $160 to do 200 of these, which is really great. And then when the students leave, they can take this part with them, or they can take the whole thing with them. And it's kind of fun. So this was our next big thing, from reference to conversation. How many of you answer a ready reference question? And when I'm saying ready reference, I mean, when was Marilyn Monroe born? How many of you get ready reference questions on the desk still? Okay, we've got a couple of hands. How many of you get a research question like, I'm writing a paper on this topic and I don't know where to start? All right, I don't feel like those are reference questions. Those are research questions. I used to work for the New York Public Library where I answered reference questions on phone reference, and questions would be like, what year was James Dean killed? They were literally reference questions that I would look in a reference book and be able to answer. There is no reference book that exists that can do a research consultation. Therefore, research consultation, reference, two different things. So we went from reference to conversation, and that's where we came in with the iPoint.
So originally, we had a desk that was in the other room where the reference staff, and they sat there and they answered reference questions, I think about 10 hours a day. I was on that desk as well. And then I run the circ desk. And so the circ desk was a separate thing. And then through budget issues, we started getting less and less staff members. And it was really difficult to staff 2 desks at the same time, all the time. And we have a lot of hours. And one thing we came up with was the iPoint. And this is a merging of the circ desk and what we call it research help desk.
So you saw a picture of the iPoint when I showed the student worker pictures, and there was the girl who was helping the gentleman. So this is what we did. We cleared off a chunk of the circ desk where we had all of the flyers and binders for like different sororities and fraternities on campus that needed people to sign in for study hours. We said we're no longer the keeper of those. We gave them an online version that they could do. We made a form for them that they could have people use online, but we don't keep those binders anymore. We don't let people use the flyers. We cleared off the desk, and we added a large computer monitor. These are around $279 for the giant monitors. We then got a Mac Mini. Mac Minis are a little bit more expensive. The reason we went with a Mac Mini is we have no space over there, and it could easily be bolted underneath the existing space that we had. We got this awesome LED keyboard that does light up like this and do light shows, and so it attracts people to come over and be like, what is that? Can I type on it?
Yeah, before the traditional reference desk we just had a regular computer, and then they would just sit down at the chair. And so I think that this does draw a lot more people in.
And it's also eye level. So they're walking up and they're talking to you, and we come out from behind the counter and work with them on it. Then we found this great little green lamp. He's become our buddy. He's our unofficial mascot. The students love him. And he's like 29 bucks at Lamps Plus. And then, of course, we needed the staff. And all these together created the iPoint. There's our little green guy, our little green bulb. And books, reserves, research, help. And this is actually what our sign is. How many of you need large signs in your library, but you can't change your signs because it's cost prohibitive? $18 for a giant sign at Costco. Giant sign, $18 at Costco. Sometimes they're $22, depending on which Costco you go to. 1 hour photo prints them. We were able to make tons of giant signs and put them up on our library for less than the cost of one sign through a sign company. So research support, it really is more than reference. We do these intense sessions up there. We realized that in our other format, we weren't necessarily reaching all of the students, but now they have to walk by the desk to get in. And what we do is we really have our librarians that are up there at the iPoint keep their ears open. Because how many times do you realize the student is not asking you the question that they want the answer to? How many people see that? So what happens is there'll be a student checking out a book and they'll be like, yeah, this was all I could find in the stacks. It looks like everything else was checked out. The librarian is right there and can be like, well, do you want me to just take a couple minutes and see if we can find something else for you? Or did you know we have a bunch of ebooks? Maybe one of the ebooks would be a better solution for you than the 1969 book you found still hanging out in the stacks that we obviously should have weeded out. It works really well to just have somebody up there who's got their eyes and ears open and can troubleshoot, because the questions don't always come to us. We don't have the staff to have a roving librarian. Some articles on roving librarians, students have found it kind of weird that somebody's like, what are you doing? Can I help you?
Yeah.
This works much better. We can just kind of come up and even just come up and be the person checking out the book to them if they seem like they have an issue. Just be like, oh, well, what class are you in? And just start a conversation. And that works really well as getting them to want to get more help.
Before, people would come up to the circ desk, and I feel like students sometimes have a comfort level asking other students questions, and they might not necessarily want to ask a librarian. And this way, you can overhear it more, because before we would say, oh, you have to go to the reference desk. And even though it wasn't that far away, just another room, sometimes I think they would hesitate because they were shy and they didn't want to ask, or maybe they felt, oh, I already know the answer and I'm not going to ask for help, I'll just go to Wikipedia. So this way, I think that it's a combined desk that really works, and I really like it. And I think that you get more in touch with the students and what they need when you are sitting behind the iPoint desk.
The other thing that it's really great for is our faculty check out items. A lot of times we notice they check out our popular DVDs, but it gives you a chance if you don't get invited to division meetings or into other meetings where you can work with your faculty. You can be like, oh, hey, how are you? And it gives you a chance to make another connection. It just works really well. And it also has all of us understanding, all of the librarians that don't do CERC, what happens in CERC and how things work. And it's made a much better communication with our technical services staff as well, because instead of the librarian just being like, oh, something's wrong with this book, I'm sending it to technical services, and then it comes back, we actually call the person and are like, I have a student up here. Is there something wrong with this record? And the learning across just the peers in the library has been really, really good. Oh, and if you're wondering what we did with our old reference desk, it's now the paper processing center. We have put all of our staplers, hole punch, scissors, tape, paper cutters, the stuff that you hate to have cluttering your desk, it's now on the old reference desk so it doesn't bother any of us. Okay, so Sally's going to talk about the before with when to work.
So before, when we would schedule student workers, literally my evening supervisor would sit there with bunches of emails and try to figure out a schedule, and literally it was cut and paste with paper, trying to figure out a student worker schedule. And we're open 7:30 a.m. to 3 a.m. most days of the week. So we have a lot of hours, and it would take them so long. And then with the librarians, we would just have a paper schedule. And so part of the problem is we would never know if somebody didn't show up who was working. It was very, very complicated. And even with the reference librarians, we would think like, why isn't this person staffing the desk? And maybe they got somebody else to cover for them, and we didn't know who they were. So last summer we moved to this when to work program. I think it's under $300.
We're going to show it to you in a second. I have to say, when I started working there, I was like, who's on the reference desk right now? And I was actually handed a reference schedule that I think had been printed out in like 2007. That was the one they were still using, but sometimes it changed and sometimes it didn't. And we also quickly realized that certain people were staffing the desk insane amounts of hours, and no wonder they weren't always able to do collection development things or instruction things or do all of these different things, because we were using this old schedule, and we needed to make something that was much, much easier for people to use. And we also didn't want the scheduler to be the bad guy. So it was like, if we can put it into a computer program where it's not like, I can't believe Michelle gave me that evening shift, it would work much better. So this is when to work. It actually allows them to go in with their account and put the shifts that they would most like. What and how many hours a day are you willing to work? Like, what are your good days, what are your bad days? And this is the same for students and librarians. So people could go in, fill out what they want, and then as I go in and I look at the schedule, if their name is in green, it means they don't mind working the shift. If their name is in red, they don't want to work the shift. If I try to give them 2 shifts in one day, it will say, this person does not want 2 shifts on Wednesday. They only want 1 shift on Wednesday. It worked out really well, and we've got this great schedule, and then this updates itself weekly. Like, you know, it's got everything in there. So if there's a quick change that needs to be made, it's no problem. The change is made in there. And it's also great because everybody can see it. So if for some reason I'm working Wednesday night, which I don't normally work, I know what students I'm working with. So I know, wait a second, that student isn't here yet. Where are they? Works incredibly well. It has easy printout, and again, it's super inexpensive. And we actually used it in another way recently. We had some issues with how many hours people were staffing the desk, and was it in their job description that they were supposed to be working this total number of hours? And you know, this is a big thing. How many of you have to kind of account for your hours, especially when you go up for review? You have to say, I spent this many hours doing this. Wow, not that many people, I'm surprised. So you kind of have to account for your time at Pepperdine and say, well, I was doing this, I was doing that, I was doing this. And we needed to know, well, how many hours this semester have librarians staff the desk? And it took me all of 30 seconds to say, oh, look, here we go. Sally, 48 hours. Oh, I've only done 33. I should definitely up my hours. And then like Belinda, she's done 13. Patty's only had 5. So it worked out really great. We had this instantly, and we could hand it out and say, okay, here's what the actual breakdown has been.
And also, one of the great things is it's not in individual emails. So all you have to do is everyone, no matter where you are, you can just go into when to work and see who's working, as opposed to you have to remember, oh, right, somebody sent an email last Friday, and I think there was a change on the desk. I mean, it just is too many complications.
So the next thing we want to talk about, oh, yes. So marketing, how many of you guys market your library services? Maybe you make a bunch of flyers for something. How many of you make flyers for things, like an event in the library? How many of you have the expected turnout when you make that flyer? I don't see one hand. This is something that we found out was going on. We have flyers, we do all sorts of different things, and marketing is not working.
We had, traditionally, we would put an ad in the Graphic, which is our student newspaper, once a week, and we'd advertise our programs, and then we would make flyers, and we'd hand them out over campus, and we would put notices up in the library, and we also had some digital signage, but it would depend. I mean, we really weren't very good with it for a while.
It was very interesting, because when we did this student survey groups, I said, well, how often do you guys read the Graphic? And they're like, the online version? And I said, no, the print one that we have the giant thing of in the front of the library where they come and take them and put them in the recycle bin every week. And they're like, oh, we don't read the ads in that. So here we've been spending all this money on ads in our student paper that's not getting read by our students. So we realized, okay, we got to do something else. So big thing, does everything need to be a media blitz? How many times do you guys have a new service where you just advertise it like crazy? Couple of hands. All right, we started doing room scheduling online, which we're going to show you in a moment. We did very little marketing for this. You have to book your study rooms online now. We did a flyer on the door that said, hey, did you want to use this room? You can now reserve it online. We also made these little stop signs that we put on the tables inside the room and said, stop. Before you use this room, you can register for it online and keep it for extra hours. We did not do a media blitz campaign. We had a couple of things of digital signage. The students caught on like that. They were booking rooms in no time. The first week, it was like kind of spotty, and then they started realizing, wait, if I don't book the room and I'm in the room and somebody else comes in, they can kick me out. Of course I'm gonna book it. So we didn't have to do a media blitz campaign with that. We could just do some really simple marketing things because it's something that would do better spread by word of mouth. That was the big thing. If we go up to students and say, I'm gonna step down here for a minute. Okay, hey guys, I know that you guys like to use the study rooms and now you have to use an online reservation system. So don't just go to the room, you can't just go to the room, you can't just stay in the room, you have to go online and sign up for the room. How many of those students are actually going to sign up for the room? None of them. But when they had discovered it on their own, they were very excited about it, and now we're almost always booked to capacity. It turns pretty colors when it does. You're gonna be blue. I'm gonna be blue because I walked in there. So social media and digital signage. So you guys saw the dead Twitter bird, our tweetless bird? Twitter does not work on our campus. Our students don't want to read our tweets. They don't want to know about our tweets. They don't even want to tweet most of the time themselves. It is just not their culture. QR codes. How many of you put QR codes in your library? How many of you have checked your stats on your QR codes? Undergraduates at Pepperdine do not use QR codes. They do not know what QR codes are. They want nothing to do with QR codes. Graduate students at Pepperdine love QR codes. They want everything to be a QR code. They've got all the different readers on their phones. When we do marketing for the graduate libraries, we put QR codes on everything. We occasionally put them on our bathroom newsletter because other people do use our restrooms. It's not just limited to undergraduates only. So we stopped investing time in QR codes for undergraduates. They're like, why is there that box on there? Is that wrong? Is that defective? So we stopped doing that, which has really been helpful. As far as signage and flyers go, we still don't have students always attending events like we would like. We know we need to improve in this area and figure out what to do. We've had a lot of really great speakers come to campus, but we've had low turnout. And so there's got to be somewhere where we can figure out how to make that work better.
It's not Facebook either.
It's not Facebook. They don't want to be friends of the library on Facebook.
They don't want to be friends with us.
Now, if a library ambassador, which our library ambassadors love the library, posts on their Facebook page something cool is going on, we get people who show up. So that's worked really well. So one of the things we realized is where's the best place to have a captive audience where you can be like, you must read this information? The restroom. And I know lots of libraries have done this. We did installments. And it's on the door of every bathroom in the library, and it talks about different things that are going on, introducing digital commons. It does have the QR code in it because, again, graduate students and faculty do use our restrooms. And when we put events in there, we do see a better turnout at events. And we also even have our library ambassadors write some of the content for it. So they'll write database reviews, they'll write book reviews, they'll do all sorts of different things in it. And so far it works really well. Now I did go with the bathroom newsletter because when I was at UCLA, we had a bathroom newsletter, which was awesome, and it had the adventures of Brew and Bear. We have a wave as our mascot, so we don't really do anything with the wave going anywhere. But it's really fun, and what's great is people do write on the backs of these different comments and things that are going on, and sometimes they really disagree with the book reviews. This one here, The 5 Languages of Love, a lot in the men's restroom, they did not like that book. They were not fans. I was like, because I collect them all, and I'm like, okay, we won't recommend that book again.
And it's been captivating audiences since 2011.
Yes. So digital signage, we have a digital signage board in the library, and we can put our digital signage on it. We cannot control, though, whose digital signage shows up on it in addition to ours. We created this iHeart info guides. We call LibGuides info guides because not everybody's gonna be like, LibGuide, what's that? But I wanted to show you guys some examples of our digital signage that we did. We did Dead Week detours. We'll talk about what those were. We had a cupcake decorating contest. This was a very heavily attended event because they did get to eat the cupcakes. We highlighted things in our digital collection. It's our 75th anniversary, and so we digitized the George Pepperdine, our founder's collection. And this was really great because students could kind of see a different side of the founder. We also have funny things like don't panic, stressed, sorry, no vacancy, remember to book study rooms online. We do put that out right before finals because they come in panicked, and this way they can book them in advance. So improved wayfinding.
This is one of the areas where we're still working on. Traditionally, we've had these blue signs and we've had them for years, and there's been many issues with people getting lost. Our library is a little confusing, or maybe all libraries are a little confusing.
So I don't know if you guys have ever had this happen, but you're trying to park somewhere, and especially if it's in the LA area, and it's like, no parking at any time, 2-hour parking between the hours of this and this, no parking at any time due to street, and you're just like, can I park here? Do I need a permit? So if this is what your library looks like with signs, we have a very good suggestion. Recycle them. When I started, I have literally walked through the library and ripped signs off of the wall and thrown them away. This is what our signs look like.
Not kidding. And this is the improved one, isn't it?
This is actually an improved sign.
This is an improved sign.
But this is what our standard signs look like. I don't know if you guys realize it's kind of hard to read in an 8 by 10, especially when it's behind a piece of plexiglass, so it's got a lot of glare. And I don't understand that arrow.
Yeah.
Especially when it's in a hallway that only goes straight, because you have to open up the fire door to get to special collections. So one thing we've done, I hear people laughing. Yeah, you have to open it. You like get to the end of the hall and you're like, closed door, closed door. There was not a sign on the closed door that said special collections. I could not find special collections for like the first week. I was going around, and then one day the special collections librarian was like, you know, this door leads right to your office. I didn't know what it was. I hadn't opened it. It was a fire door. The other thing we found that have been great are arrows. We've done colored arrows for different events. We've cut them out, and we have literally just stuck them leading to a room. So if it's in the surfboard room, we have an arrow with like a little surfboard on it, and it goes throughout the library. So all you have to do is follow the arrows, and you will get there. Arrows work really well. Don't underestimate the power of an arrow. If you are having an event in a hard-to-find place, use arrows. And you can do them in colors and laminate them and reuse them so you aren't using a lot of paper and things like that. I like to make them in Pages, which is the word processing program, but you can make them in PowerPoint. And the great thing about a cut-out arrow is you don't have to worry about making a bunch of signs with the arrow pointing all different directions and then go to hang them and be like, I don't have the arrow going the right way. You can just stick the arrow on the sign. So monitor backgrounds were a big issue in our library.
Okay, this is one of my pet peeves. We had the Pepperdine Library website, and we had made it, I don't even know how, but it was literally, you could click in it, and people thought, oh, well, I can just go in this little background, and then they would do this, and so we'd be teaching in class, and we would beg people, please do not click on that. Don't type on it. Don't do anything. And interestingly enough, the professors wouldn't listen. And they would click into this thing, and then it would only be like half of it, and then they would have a horrible time getting out of it, and it was just horrible. Every class, I would just get so frustrated.
And it would also freeze the computer if you're teaching. Or let's say, this is what also happened with professors, they'd start entering their grades, but it's not really a real web page.
Yeah.
So then it would just go away. It'd be like, error.
And then they'd freak out. They would completely freak out, and we'd have to get the computer guy, and finally we figured out a way to stop that, but we could never stop people from using it.
And honestly, I have been fighting this since I started, and 3 weeks ago, we switched to this as our background, and it's nice and pretty, and you don't have to type in it or click on it. I used one of those. I just put in word cloud generator, and I actually took that 60-page report that I did, and I plugged it in, and this is what came back. So it kind of let me know I was on the right track for that report.
I'm really happy about it.
So how many of you have websites that are not managed by your library, and any request that you have to do has to go through IT? And you have to fill out a form. And let's say you have more than one request, you have to fill out 2 forms. And then IT takes a few weeks to look at your form and decide if there's somebody in IT that's really able to do this. Does this sound familiar? Oh, yeah, no, actually you can't. Your picture, it can't be that big. It needs to be this size. But our picture is a portrait size. Yeah, but can you make it this size? But our picture is this size. Can you make it this size? This is a conversation that we constantly have with IT. So we tried to see what we could do. And now I will say our library website is much, much better than it was before. But it was still very confusing. This is what it looked like. You can see there's a picture of a librarian up in the corner, but because of the sizing, it's like just part of the face. And so you have a bunch of these like kind of weird looking faces peeking out at you, and you're like, I don't want to ask help that way. Why are there only eyes on that person? And why does that person only have like a chin? This was not a good look for us.
And also, I was one of them, so I really didn't like it. And this was our new and improved website. The one we had before was even, it was harder to navigate, but I really did not like having my picture in the front of the website. And matter of fact, sometimes I'd be teaching class, and I would get to this page and would be my face on it, and they really believed that I was the librarian, like I taught the classes and I did all of the reference.
Yes, I would have it happen where they'd be like, but you said we could ask you for help at any time, but that's not you. So who's that person? So that we changed to just the logo of the iPoint, that little green light bulb. And then the other thing is this little research box here. Info guides, well, what are those? Electronic databases, journals, periodicals, course reserves, e-reserves. Wait, course reserves, e-reserves, what's the difference? There was a lot of confusion. And one of the things we know now about web design is you want to use active words because you want people to feel like they're doing something other than clicking, they're getting to their destination. So we took this box that was kind of horrible, and we're like, why don't we tell people what's really going to happen when they click on these? Info guide, start your research here. Can't be more clear than that. Start here. Schedule a session in ACE. That's our Academic Center for Excellence. Guess what you can do? If you click on there, you can schedule a session. You can book a study room online, exclamation point. Course reserves and e-reserves, we made them the same page. We used to have 2 completely separate pages. And usually a faculty member does not say, this is on print reserve and this is on e-reserve. They go to the page and they're like, wait, there's supposed to be these articles on reserve for class, but they're not here. Where are they? We don't have that problem anymore. 1 click. And we also have it say access databases and e-journals because they're thinking, well, I don't know if I need to make a database. Isn't that like an Excel spreadsheet? They don't think the same way that we do, but if they know that they're accessing something, they're like, that's content. And then we also added check your interlibrary loan account. Even though it said interlibrary loan on our website, they thought that that's what they clicked on to request it, but they didn't know exactly how to get back to finding out if their book was on its way. So really small changes. And we also did an integration into Sakai. How many of you have course management systems? Okay, how many of you do not like them because they're not library friendly? Oh God, I gotta find out what you guys are using because I didn't see a lot of hands go up there. So this is a huge improvement on what we had. Although it's, hi, she's so nice. She's my librarian, but how can she help me? And so this is the first step. This is what our IT department was able to do rather than just link to the library's webpage, which is not quite what we wanted. When we teach a class, we can actually go in and embed our LibGuides into the class. So it goes from being my library as 1 word to my library 2 words, and that's what it looks like when they click on it if they come in for course instruction. We do have to do that manually because we are running an older version of Sakai. So now, how many of you guys used to watch the show Home Improvement? Anybody in here watch that show, Home Improvement? Do you remember how they used to do a salute to tools? And he'd get really excited and he'd have a tool and he would use it all wrong. We wanted to do a salute to SpringShare because you cannot use this product in any way all wrong. And they are the most amazing company I have ever worked with. I do not get paid by SpringShare in any way. I love SpringShare.
I love SpringShare. They are the best company. They listen to you. They have great products, and they're easy to use.
Yes, and if you email them, they send you emails back like, oh, our programmer is actually located in Australia, so he is still sleeping, but he will get to this as soon as he wakes up. So around 10 or 11 p.m. your time, you will see that we have fixed this problem. And I'm like, but that's in less than 48 hours. That's not even 24 hours. That's 12 hours from the time I've complained.
And they're not that expensive.
They are not. They have absolutely great pricing. Most of the people here are California schools. They do work with Skelk. And for those of you that don't know Skelk, you should learn about Skelk. So our biggest thing was LibCal, which is our online room booking system. We are going to have to change the name because we use it now for many more things aside from room booking.
In the past, we had a lot of problems with booking our study room. So we literally, at the Circ desk, would have just have the day on a piece of paper, and they would sign up for the day. And so we didn't keep the statistics. And we also would get, at the last 2 weeks at the end of the semester, one time, someone actually swiped those pages, whited them out, took all the names off, then they copied them, and then they put their own names in them. I'm not even kidding. And it was chaos. It was chaos. And so we would have to do a special one for the last 2 weeks of the year, and we had a special Pepperdine stamp, and we would have to stamp it to make sure that they wouldn't change all the names on it. It was really crazy. And then we started looking around at all these products for study rooms, and we actually picked one.
We did. We picked it.
We picked it. It was a very expensive.
Very expensive one. Some very prestigious universities actually use this one. And
we had a webinar.
We had a webinar, and our webinar went like this. So Sally's going to be the person who is teaching the webinar. So Sally, it says that I can add more rooms, and it doesn't look like from the form that I'm able to add more rooms.
I'll have to get back to you. That's a really good question.
Well, for some reason, I can't seem to book anything after 8 p.m., but our library is open until 3 a.m. How can I extend our hours to midnight?
That's a really great question. I'm going to have to ask my supervisor.
This went on for like an hour. We walked out of there and we're like, cancel the PO. This company doesn't know what they're doing. And oh, the best part was we were like, but blah, blah, blah university, theirs works so well. Yes, that is because they've bought a third-party product that costs several $1,000s that makes theirs work correctly. So we were really glad that when we dumped this, I actually emailed SpringShare and I was like, hi, Charlie. I'm just wondering, by any chance, is SpringShare interested in getting into the calendaring business? And he's like, actually, we're just about to announce a beta of this product called LibCal that will have room bookings built into it. You realize in my mind, Charlie was a superhero until I actually met him at a conference. And he's like, hi, I'm Charlie. And I'm like, where's your cape? I thought you were a superhero. So we started using it.
And literally, well, first of all, it was a leap of faith to use it.
Yeah, we were like, okay, it's brand new.
Brand new, like days old.
Days old. And literally, we would do something, and then it wouldn't work, and I would call SpringShare, or I would email them, and I go, this isn't working. They're like, no problem, it'll be fixed in 90 minutes. I've never had a vendor say it'll be fixed in 90 minutes, and usually it only took them 30. Or I'd say, it seems as though anybody who logs in can accidentally delete the whole entire system. Yes, we just realized this error in the code, and it's gonna be fixed in like 15 minutes. So here's an example you guys saw before. Pink means that it's confirmed. So this is just showing you like how quickly we turned it on in the beginning of October, and they caught on really quickly to booking the rooms.
Yeah, and not only that, like everyone can use this, like the library staff, the librarians, everyone, it's just really easy to use, and even our student workers, they have no problem with it. When you teach students how to use it, they have no problem. It's very easy.
And we use it on all of our campuses. We have libraries all over Southern California, and the room scheduler is there, which is really great for commuter students because they were literally showing up and signing in the same day in a notebook, and they may have come an hour and a half and got there and found out there was no room for their group to meet in, and they can book. You can set how many weeks out they can book, so we let them book out like half to the half point in the semester. So if they're going to be meeting regularly, they can go ahead and say, all right, every Friday, 4 p.m., we're meeting in 317.
And also, Pepperdine's libraries, they range, every library has a different people. Like our West LA library has our older students, while the Payson library has our 18-year-olds. So you would assume that the 18-year-olds would really know how to use the study rooms and how to do all the online things. But I haven't heard any complaints from our adult students either.
No, we got 2 complaints total from people who wanted the sign-up sheet back. And this also works 100% on a mobile device, and it is like the most beautiful interface you have ever seen. So I saw 2 questions up at the front table. You had a question?
Yeah, I just assumed then that you can create different access points for every librarian calendar versus the...
Yeah, this is the room. This is actually just... Oh, sorry. Sally's going over to you.
I was asking whether or not you could create separate calendars accessed by separate groups, basically. Separate. So the librarians, we have conference rooms that we only want access to. We don't want anybody else to have access to it. So I'm assuming that you have different calendars that different people can sign into.
We do. We have public versions, so these are all the things that the public can book just from going into it. Our internal room bookings where like you'd have to get approval or we would send you the URL, that's all in a separate side.
Does anybody else have another question?
Do you guys have a limit on how many hours or how many times a student can book a room? And if so, can you integrate that limit into the software?
That is absolutely like the most important question that we had, because each of our libraries has a different limit set for their rooms because of the programs that they do. So every single, I'm going to sign into this for a second, every single set of rooms has different requirements. You can say rooms that are in Payson Library, we only do 2 hours. All of the graduate campuses are 3 hours. We also now, we loved it so much, we've added a bunch of our souped up computers that students fight over. They're now in this system also. And so that is 4 hours because they need 4 hours to book a product, make a project. So if I come into the room bookings, just so you guys can see it, and I go into the settings, these are all of the different groups that I've created. And each group has their restrictions. We loved it so much, we've even used it to help the speech lab, which had, there was one person who was getting hundreds of emails being like, can I come to the speech lab at this time? But it'd be like from 50 different students who wanted to come to the 10 a.m. hour. We put the speech lab in here so it shows what it's available and what isn't. But every single location has a different restrictions and requirements on it. Like these are some of our special rooms. We also have loved it so much, we were going to show this slide later, but I'll just skip it really quickly, that we needed a way that students could just fill out a general form being like, I need to work with a librarian, and we didn't want somebody to constantly having to do that field work and being like, okay, wait, there's 4 people who want to come in at 1 o'clock. So we, using the campus guides, which is like LibGuides on steroids, that's from SpringShare, we switched to that, and you can actually book a research session, so I can see, oh, 5 o'clock is available. It tells me if I'm going to make my appointment, I'm going to get a confirmation email, and they can just fill out a form right in here, and then that slot disappears. So it works really great for those one-on-one research appointments. We love it for that, and this is for like a generic one, and there is a specific way to have it work with each individual librarian.
Anybody else have another question? Okay.
We could give an hour-long presentation on the joys of SpringShare.
Let's talk about when we were Sherlock Holmes and Watson.
Okay, so I start getting these emails from a student who's abroad who informs me that she is not currently located in California. In fact, she's in our program in Switzerland, and she is not booking study rooms in the library, and she doesn't understand why she's getting reservations saying her study room has been confirmed. So I email her back, and I'm like, could it possibly be that one of your friends is using your email? Because it is limited to just at pepperdine.edu accounts, which you can do. You can limit it to just your campus account. And she's like, no, in all caps. This is all in all caps. All of my friends are currently abroad. I have no friends currently located on campus. And the few people that I know would never, ever, ever, ever use my email without my permission! Exclamation point. I'm like, okay. Like an hour later, she sends an email. It's happened again. So I go running downstairs, and I'm like, Sally, it's happened again.
Literally, we ran down. It was so cool. It was like a takedown.
It was really fun. So we go running in. Okay, I'm going to use somebody as an example. You're going to be the culprit. I go running in, and I open up the study room door, and I'm like, hi, did you book a study room online? Did you know about our online booking system? And yes, you did. Just out of curiosity, is your name Sarah Smith? And now I'm going to be the student. Do you know Sarah Smith? Did you know Sarah Smith's abroad this semester? But she said it was okay for me to use her email to book study rooms because I have this really big project, and she told me it was okay, and I'm really, 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 really good friends. And Sally's standing there, and we're like, no, it's not okay, because she's not happy about this, and she doesn't like people using her identity because, identity theft is not good. And the girl goes, what's going to happen to me? And we're like, nothing's going to happen to you right now other than your time is up in the study room. But if we catch you again, you're going to be banned for the rest of the semester from using the study rooms. This is the only time it has ever happened. She was very apologetic. She sent us an apology email. Really, honestly, the only time it's ever happened. And I do check like every week to make sure that our abroad student isn't showing back up in the system. So you do have that type of thing happen. And we realized that this was a bit of an issue, so we were able to put our firewall in front of it. So now they actually have to log in with what we call WaveNet to get to the page. There is like a slight workaround on that. If somebody leaves the computer after they logged into WaveNet, you could technically like go up to that computer. But we have not had any problems. That is the only problem we have had on every single campus with this product. The only problem.
And I'm just happy as head of access services that I don't get the angry emails from the students about the study rooms. And because sometimes they would CC it to upper administration, and it was really ugly, and I'm really happy that I don't have to deal with that anymore.
Okay, so we talked a lot about wanting to move towards data-driven services, and one of the things I learned really quickly, and I know that a lot of our colleagues at Pepperdine are watching this right now, we love you, but statistics were not going so well. How many of you take statistics like maybe 2 weeks a year? You guys do that 2 weeks a year model. How many of you have a piece of paper that people check off statistics on, and then some poor person is stuck tallying all of those? Or maybe you make printouts of your chat reference or your emails, and somebody has to kind of go through and try to code those. This is what was happening, and we were not getting good data. Because really, 2 weeks of the semester does not look the same 2 weeks of the year. What if you did it the 2 weeks at the beginning of the year? What if it was midterms? What if it was one of those weird years where spring break came early and so they had to have papers? It doesn't work. 2 weeks does not give you an accurate account of what your library looks like.
Before we had, when I started, I actually was head of technical services for a year, and I had to do a lot of the statistics, and you would literally have to wait until people came back from vacation because they had all of the stuff in an email, and I was in a new position, and it would be so stressful to try to gather statistics. It was horrible, just awful, like piecing together people's emails, and you'd have to ask one person, and then you have to run around and find another person and hope they were there and not in a meeting, and usually whoever asked for the statistic, they needed it right away, and you couldn't give them the information. And then we moved to Google Docs, but the problem is it was Google Docs more. There was at the time there wasn't a Pepperdine University Google Docs, and so it was just this general Google Docs, and you always had to remember your username and password. And then we got the Pepperdine Library. Pepperdine University Google Docs, and then our Google document wouldn't fit into that one. It was just ridiculous.
So we got LibAnalytics, which is cheap. Cheap. Cheap.
From SpringShare.
From SpringShare. And it's fully customizable. So this is what our research transaction page looks like. You can pop in you can set in predefined terms. We actually haven't needed to do any. You pick what campus you're on, you select the type of transaction, you submit the form. Now, was anybody here at Skill? Okay, a couple people were at Skill. So we did this really fun thing at Skill where I actually used my husband's voice, and he called in and he was like, "This is the dean of libraries. I have to walk into a meeting with the provost in 30 minutes, and I need to know how many instruction sessions have been taught." Okay. How many of you could tell me in 30 seconds how many instruction sessions have been taught this semester? Okay, I see one hand. Do you use LibAnalytics? Or do you use Gimlet? Okay. All right, well, I will show you how easy it is to pull that up. I can click on Data Explorer. I can say that I need to have these statistics for this semester. So I'm going to say, all right, January 1st to just today. And I need to know all of the instruction classes that have been taught, and I only need them for Payson Library. Generate reports. 530. I want to come in here and say, all right, I'm going to analyze these fields, and I need to know who was teaching. This one's kind of hard to read. I want to know the level of consultation. All right. Oh, wait, did I pull up the wrong form? I'm in the wrong form. Sorry, that's why it's looking weird. Library instruction. And here's my date range. January 1st, even though we weren't really there on the 1st, to today. And again, I'm going to say, you know what, I'll just run the report so we can see it all. So in that time period, we have done a total of 182 instruction sessions. I thought that seemed a little high before. I was like, ooh, that's kind of scaring me. And then I can go through and I can say, all right, analyze the fields for me. And it's going to show me the audience, the session types, the different divisions. If there was a research assignment attached to the instruction, which we always want to see, was an info guide created? And I can also say, all right, well, who taught the most? And I go right here, oh, Elizabeth Perang, she taught the highest number, followed up by Mark Vineyard. So she did 14, he did 13, and I can kind of go through and look across the board at who taught how many classes, type it in an email, send it to the dean, he can take it to the meeting for the provost. This actually did happen multiple times where we've had to pull data like that, and it's worked extremely well.
We love SpringShare.
We love SpringShare. All right, we know that we're at the 2:30 mark, so we're gonna keep clicking through. So one of the other things that we did with our library ambassadors is we did student-generated campus guides. Again, LibGuides, but on steroids. They have a lot more things in them. You can do a trial. And our student, one of our favorite student library ambassadors, Darlena Kern, she actually made a math info guide that makes math look cool for those of us that don't love math. And it was really great. And a lot of our students have wanted to do this type of thing. So we kind of do it as a, well, if you're a library ambassador, you can create a guide and like share it with everybody. And it looks great on your resume, and it looks great on your grad school applications, so they do it. So food and drinks. We allow food and drinks in our library. And yes, it does get gross. It does get messy. There are old pizza boxes. This does happen. If you say no food, no drinks on your library, I don't even have to click past the slide. This will happen. But what will happen is they will hide this because they know they're not supposed to have it. So somebody will be going by and they will find a bunch of newspapers on top of a mess or a spill. So our feeling is you can bring food and drink in the library. We ask people to use lids. They don't always use lids. And we were like, okay, well, we know student government, they really want us to have coffee in the library. We do it during finals. Sally, tell us for a second about coffee during finals, free coffee during finals.
It actually is one of my biggest nightmares because it's right in front of the circ desk, and they literally get so angry when these big carafes of coffee when they're empty. And we have to use it through Sodexo, which is our food vendor for Pepperdine, and so we don't have coffee during the weekends, and we're open all night, and yet the latest coffee we can have is sometimes they'll deliver it at 5:30 p.m. as the latest coffee, and I mean it just doesn't meet the students' needs.
And where we're located in Malibu, our like Starbucks closes at 9, and it's not close. Like we are a very secluded campus. So enter human healthy vending. Guess what? When you're a secluded campus, nobody wants to bring a vending machine to you if you only want to have one vending machine. But we have actually gotten this company who's new to take a chance on us, and they are giving us a coffee machine. It costs us nothing to have the coffee machine. We have to pay for the plumbing to change it, and then we get money back on what the students pay for the coffee. We don't service it. We don't stock it. We don't do anything to it, and guess what? It's open 24/7, and we don't have to call and say, we're out of coffee. So we're very excited about our coffee machine. It gets installed next week.
I will not miss the coffee.
We will not miss free coffee. Okay, so here's some of the fun projects that we've done. The pop-up lounge was a big thing that we did. We weeded our reference collection, and we took out this huge range of stacks. And we had this big, giant empty space. We called it the Pace and Yoga Studio for a short period of time. And we had a contest where students submitted proposals to do a pop-up lounge. And this is an art installation because we would never go against our campus planning and buy furniture that's not permitted in the library and worry about anything like that at all. This is a student art installation, temporary. So here is our winning concept. And they had a $5,000 project. $5,000 was donated to us to do this. We love the concept of the aquarium tables. Not practical. We are getting a 50-gallon aquarium, though, where the fish and everything were donated. The restaurant booths, we love restaurant booths. Claremont, we love your booths. We want your booths.
We want those booths.
Expensive, those booths.
They were too expensive.
They were like $4,000 for the booths.
If anyone has any suggestions for cheap ones, please let us know.
So here's what we were able to pull off. This is our pop-up lounge. We got the murals, we got the plants, we got some really cheap furniture. And you cannot get our students and our faculty out of the pop-up lounge. The faculty are like, oh, we'll meet in the pop-up lounge before we have to do that class, so I'll meet you in that loungy space. So that was really great. Our next big thing?
Actually, someone in the audience suggested that.
Somebody in the audience, yes, Shar. Shar actually, they have a button maker.
Yes, and we had button maker envy.
And we had button maker envy, so we bought a button maker because it's so much fun. And please, please make a button before you leave. You will realize you want one too. So we got a button maker, and our students have flipped out over making buttons. And actually, our dean had an announcement sent out to all of the faculty on Valentine's Day, because we had the button maker out, to please bring pictures of their family. Print any picture, except they did forget to say what size, so people came with odd size pictures, but we shrunk them down on the color copier. And there was a slew of staff and faculty that came in to make buttons of their families. Or a couple of people had a recent publication and they wanted like the cover of the journal as a button. I kid you not. And so they could make anything into a button. And we've done it a bunch of other times. We're also going to bring it out for graduation if people want to make button graduation gifts. It was really, really great.
Don't forget our Ryan buttons.
How many of you have seen the Ryan Gosling Loves the Library blog? We made Ryan Gosling Loves the Library buttons. So Dead Week Detours is another program we did. We kept hearing from students, we want more fun, we want more fun, we want more fun.
We just had the free coffee, which we've already talked about that. That's the only thing we really did before.
Yes, we did 4 to just see how it went. We did cupcake decorating. We did Just Breathe, where we had a facilitated stretching class. We did Keep Calm and Craft On, where they made Christmas cards, holiday cards, and we also had a yoga night. Our 2 most popular were cupcake decorating and crafting. So here are some pictures from our cupcake decorating. The best part of cupcake decorating was I actually personally made 80 cupcakes, thinking that would be enough. We ran out in about 25 minutes. And then a huge slew of like 30 students come in and they're like, we're here to make the cupcakes. We saw it on Facebook. And we hadn't posted it to Facebook, but apparently all these students were like, made this cupcake and it was good. So we're gonna do it again, but this time we're actually gonna buy the cupcakes without frosting on them.
And we do this because it's a really great connection to the student body, and we just want them to be happy when they're in the library. And even though it's finals, we still want to think about their mental and physical well-being and emotional well-being.
And we are a Christian university, so we did Christmas cards. And this went over like huge. And these cards were gorgeous. And we actually had parents who contacted our like some of the AULs and stuff about how much they loved getting this like handmade Christmas card from their student. And we even digitized some of the books that we had in special collections that had Christmas themes and had those available as cards as well.
And our crafting genius librarian, Mary Ann, came up with a lot of this
Yes, she did. We are very fortunate in that we have a lot of people that have talents that not all librarians come with, and Mary Ann is incredibly crafty. And so she came up with all of these different ideas, and it was great. And they actually crafted until 11 p.m. We only planned to do this for 1 hour. She had a steady flow of students until like 11 p.m. So we're gonna finally wrap up with, we talked to you about things that were mostly really inexpensive things that you could do. This was our big budget item. It was the most expensive thing that we did, creating a place for students. This was ACE. We got a one-time money to do this from the provost. And the goal was to create a single central space that would provide focused research support. We brought in the Writing Center. We're bringing in some of the science and math tutors. We are also using it as a launching place for our Digital Commons student publishing platform. We are providing presentation support, as well as we brought in the speech lab. For those of you that don't know what our campus looks like, it looks like this. The library is down here, and a lot of the student services were up here. So you have to take a shuttle, because you can't walk it. It's just ridiculous.
It's really hilly.
It's really hilly. So the speech lab was up here, but the class for speech was down here. So students would have to take the shuttle, and they hated doing that. So we tried to bring as many services together as we could, and we've created this space of shared ownership.
Before, this used to be a space that IT owned, even though it's in the library. They had it, and they kind of let it run down, and it had just old computers, and it really, well, you'll see you see the picture. It really wasn't an inviting space.
This is what it looks like now.
And it's library. This is, it's our space now.
It's now our space. This was before. I mean, who wants to study in there? And this is after. Before, after. So this was, again, done with one-time money to create a great space. But what I do want to point out is a lot of libraries have spaces that could just be rejuvenated a little bit. One of the big things we were told we could not do was buy pillows. And I'm sorry, I can't hear that. When you say don't buy pillows, I hear, Michelle, go out and buy pillows. They're so fabulous. And I heard things like, pillows get gross, and then we have to throw them away, and they're $150 each. I have never in my life owned a $150 pillow. I don't know about any of you. I like Home Goods and Ross and Target when it comes to pillows. So for about $150, I went and bought a ton of pillows, bright colors, and put them all over the furniture, and the students loved them, and they completely rejuvenated the space and like made it more soft and fun and open. So I recommend to anybody, if you have a soft seating space in your library, get the $150 or the $200 and go buy, don't spend more than $15 on a pillow because they will make it gross and you will want to throw it away. But we bought all these pillows, and they love them. And yes, if you put in a sofa, they will sleep on it.
And
Don't try to come up with a way to make them not sleep on it. They will do it.
And the pop-up lounge, she brought pillows down there too. They love them.
Yeah, they love the pillows. So that's what we have for you guys. This is what we've done, what we love. We're very passionate about all of our projects. So do you guys have any questions? Everybody's so quiet. Wait, hold on. Sally's coming down with the microphone. We don't want the virtual people to not get to know what's going on.
What's the frequency and the format of your installments, your bathroom newsletter? How often is it coming out? And
That's not getting picked up for some reason. They're making faces at me. Did the microphone get turned off? Okay, so go ahead and talk. What was your question?
the frequency and format of your installments, business newsletter, bathroom newsletter?
We try to do it once a month to kind of keep it current. Occasionally, when I don't have time to do it, I'll take a flyer for an event that we have and I'll just stick it in there. And we actually had one student, now color copies on our campus are expensive, they're 35 cents each. They found a picture of a dog dressed up as Superman on the internet, a Pomeranian, and they printed them out and put them on top of the installments in every single restroom. And we don't know who did it, and it's happened twice. But yeah, we just put all sorts of different things in there to kind of, you know, spice things up. Okay, we have to get you near a microphone. What's your question? Oh, okay. So the question was, how do we use the things that are at the iPoint station? So what we did is we put in this really large monitor. So when students walk in, they see this flashing keyboard and they see this really large monitor. Actually, I'll try to pull the picture up real quick. And what we have up on the monitor when you first see it is, sorry, it's very noisy. When you first see the monitor, it's always got the booking a room thing on there. That's like one of our most popular things. So it does get them to stop there. Okay. So here, I don't know, something changed. All right, so this is what it, did this one, okay. So this is what it looks like when they come in. There's like the flashing keyboard. And that area there used to just be covered in flyers, and it had, are you guys bringing a new microphone? It had hole punch, stapler, all that stuff. And so now it looks like this. It's like a really clean area. So they come up there and it's got the green light bulb. It looks white in the picture. And that's where we do our research consultations, the short ones. So we decided that there's like a 2-format approach to research consultation. There's the quick 5-minute. And then if you know it's gonna be a 20 to 30-minute thing, we bring them up to ACE. And we're like, oh, and did you know that you can get proofreading done in the library now? You can make an appointment with a writing tutor. And most of the time when we tell them that about these extra services they can now get, like, oh, well, can I make my appointment right now? That's what's been continually happening. So we're really supporting cross-discipline things by starting at the iPoint with the quick question. If it's a longer question, we bring them upstairs to ACE, show them the space, and have them work with a librarian, and then oftentimes make an appointment with a writing tutor or with someone in the speech lab.
Anybody else have a question?
The Mac Mini, that is what is running our computer. So the area actually underneath there, that's our book drop. And we're gonna relocate our book drop. We just haven't done that yet. So that's why we needed something really small, because we don't have anything built in to do it. The other neat thing about a Mac Mini, for those of you that don't know, it's one of the few Mac products where if they had a laptop that they wanted to plug in, they could do that into the monitor, where if you get an iMac, you don't have that possibility. So that's why we went with a Mac Mini.
I'll run over there.
So I'm curious about the arrangement you make. If you say you hire the student ambassadors, but then they're sort of on a probationary period, what sort of formulas do you have in line to demonstrate their competence, or what do they have to do to prove that they're still doing what you want them to do?
Our library ambassadors all get a weekly assignment that they have to complete. It shouldn't take them more than an hour, and they're supposed to complete it during work time. The idea being that they aren't constantly helping somebody, and a lot of times, as we know, our student workers are doing homework, so we want them to write something about whatever it is, a database review, find a website that they think is really interesting, find an example of plagiarism on the internet, different things like this, and they have to find it and they send it in an email. If they aren't doing those assignments, that's kind of like a, and I'll coach them on it and say, well, are you, was something going on? Did you have a bad week? And a lot of times, they are students. They'll be like, oh my gosh, I had the worst bio lab, and I'm so sorry. Can I just do it this week? And when that's the case, it doesn't necessarily strike against them unless they've done it multiple times. If they get a complaint that they were rude, or if I see them poorly interacting with a patron, I kind of make a note of that and I try to counsel them and meet with them. It's interesting, the idea of coaching rather than disciplining actually comes from Nordstrom's philosophy, that you coach. And I won't say how I know that, but it really does make a difference to not be taking a disciplinary action with them right away and to kind of come in and be like, hey, what's going on? Like, we did have one student who was just off. They were totally off their game. And a couple of people were kind of touch base with them, and they were off. And then I had the student come in, and I was talking to them, trying to be gender neutral here. I was like, everything okay? What's going on? And the student was like, it's just really bad, and I'm sorry, I know I've been off. I had a really emotional week, and my family's moving, and I was totally off. I should have had somebody cover my shifts. And I was like, no, that's totally fine. If something like that happens again, just let us know, and we'll have somebody cover your shifts. You're a college student. And my big thing is they are a college student first. And you don't want to take the fun away. You don't want them to come to work and feel miserable. So we try to be very open. And look, if you can't cover your shift, no problem. Just put it up there. And believe me, another one of our students wants your shift.
Do we have time for another question or no?
One more, all right.
We also love SpringShare at our library, but did you look at any other product before you adopted Lib Analytics?
I did look at a bunch of different products before we looked at Lib Analytics. Most of the products were more expensive. Lib Analytics is also working towards fully integrating with the other SpringShare products, and what we really dislike is having everything different. We also wanted something that was easy for anybody to use. And that was why we really liked Lib Analytics. From the products that we looked at that would work for our needs, it was anywhere from 30 to 50% less expensive. And the customer support alone has been really, really great. I have on occasion accidentally changed a field by not realizing it would change all of our data. And I called SpringShare, I'm like, oh, what did I do? They had it fixed in 15 minutes. I don't know many other companies that would do it like that. So it's brand loyalty in a lot of ways. Oh, do you guys see the cute little cards on your tables? So we had some students who were saying, people are too loud in the library. Why are they on their cell phones? Can you tell them to get off their cell phones? That guy was breaking up with his girlfriend, and it was really obnoxious, and all of these different things. And so we realized we need a way to empower our students. So we created shush cards. These are actually going out they'll go out on Monday, shush cards. And they have cute little images on them. Some of them are a little more strong. And it says, you've been officially shushed. And the idea is that it's a easy way for them to not feel any confrontation when they're like, get off your cell phone. But that they can really just be like, hey, let me give this to you. And especially with our Academic Center for Excellence having opened, for some reason, a couple of people have decided that's their own private office and that they should take all of their phone calls in there. And so I've told them 3 times, you cannot use this as your personal office. And then I'll get a call from one of our other staff members, that person is back again making a phone call. So we just felt like this was a really good way to kind of drive it home. And we are out of time. Thank you.